Welcome to Face the State. I'm Oriana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, every 2 years, the Nevada legislature meets to hammer out a budget and new laws for the coming biennium. Now, this time around, though, we could see some changes to the way Nevada treats renewable energy, with some bills already introduced. Vote Solar Regional Director Jessica Scott and State Senator Mo Dennis are both here to talk about that. Thank you both so much for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Thanks
Thank you.
for having us here.
All right, so let's start with solar. How would you guys describe the state of the solar industry in Nevada right now?
Nevada was previously viewed as a clean energy leader, and after the 2015 PUCN decision, it was really seen as a black eye on Nevada's reputation. And so Vote Solar is really excited to be working with Senator Dennis and his colleagues to make sure that Nevada can be restored as a clean energy leader.
Right, to catch people up, the Public Utilities Commission basically decided to change the way customers were reimbursed for the energy their solar panels were feeding back into the grid, right? So it made it so that many solar customers weren't seeing the return on their investment, and solar companies eventually, many of them moved out of state. Are we still in that position, or are we seeing companies still interested in being in Nevada? Are they coming back?
We're still in the position where the solar market has stalled, we'll say that. I think that it's important to recognize that there's tremendous opportunity here, and Vote Solar is going to be working to make sure, pardon me, I totally lost my train of thought. So the reputation needs to be restored, huge potential. Solar customers are affected. Thankfully, we did get the grandfathering decision from the PUCN, so that helped for current customers, but the future of solar remains uncertain, and we need market certainty.
What would you like to see happen? Are you hoping that the decision to change net metering for all customers going forward goes back to previous rates, or is there a different fix?
I think that it's important that solar customers be fully and fairly compensated for the contribution of their local clean energy to the grid. And so we're open to how that might happen, but that full and fair compensation is critical for the success of the market.
Is there support for that in the legislature? Do you think that'll happen?
I think there absolutely is. And even if there's not complete support at the legislature, there's complete support from the public. The Energy Choice Initiative had a huge amount of public support, and solar polls at those same numbers. So the public is very much in favor of solar.
What is in the way of making that happen? What are the barriers?
I think if you're making a decision about solar, you want certainty. This is going to be a good economic decision going into the future, so that's why market certainty is so critical. And I think that those options, having energy choice, and so one of the things we're working with Senator Dennis on is community solar to make sure that everyone, regardless of whether or not you own a home, can go solar.
Yeah, this is an interesting prospect, and not one I'd really thought about before, but I guess it exists in other states. Instead of just having these individual solar setups for your own house on your own roof, this could be a neighborhood park, for example, that has some kind of solar array that people can buy into. Is that how it would work?
Yeah, it's a no roof model. So even if you are a renter, there's 500,000 people in Nevada that are renters, or you might have a roof that's not suitable for solar, the wrong solar orientation, you can still participate in a community solar project, and the energy that's produced from that project gets credited directly to your energy bill. So you get that credit on your energy bill from the production of that solar project.
And also, when you're talking about individuals that they may not, there's other issues that come up, where they can't even afford to do it on their own.
Right.
So by being able to join together as a community, they could have access to that cleaner energy.
Right. Now, Senator, you're sponsoring a bill to encourage this. So what does the bill have in it to make this happen?
Well, we're still waiting on the final language, and how that will go. Sometimes it doesn't go exactly the way you want it to, but that's the plan, is to put forth something that allows individuals to be able to get together. So regardless of your income, regardless of, even small businesses can participate, where they kind of go together and you put an array, like you said, either on a park, on an empty lot, or on a school, or in a community where they have that opportunity to have access to that. And not only do they have access to the clean energy, but it's also helping to produce cleaner energy, so that, like for me, in my constituents, having cleaner air, for example, helps with the asthma and other things where people concentrated in urban areas have a lot of those health issues that can be resolved by having that cleaner energy.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of interesting benefits, and one of them that maybe isn't apparent is national security, kind of decentralizing energy production, right? Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
I think inherently a centralized power model is vulnerable. You have that centralized vulnerable spot, and distributed generation and community solar, you're getting that energy produced from several different places around the service territory. So it gives you much more grid resiliency, and it makes you, it strengthens the grid. So I think that having that distributed generation paired with the centralized really makes for a stronger grid.
Right, so if you have a centralized energy producer, it could be a target or also just subject to bad weather, for example. So if we have it kind of decentralized, there are a lot of different places people could get their power from. It seems like that would be to everyone's benefit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we take for granted how much we need electricity. And if that gets disrupted, it affects all of our lives. So making sure that we have that reliable source of energy and solar paired with electric vehicles and storage, these things can all work together, and you can combine distributed energy resources into a much more resilient grid.
Okay, we need to make sure this is sustainable though, and I know one of the big concerns surrounding the PUC decision about net metering was that when you have more customers getting their energy from solar, that drives up costs for traditional energy users. Is there truth in this, and how do we mitigate that, if so?
There have been several independent studies that actually confirm that there's a net benefit to all ratepayers from solar. So the key is making sure that both the costs and the benefits of solar are properly valued. And so, as Senator Dennis was mentioning, there's public health benefits and having cleaner air and healthier communities. These are all inherent benefits of renewable energy.
Right, but cost specific. I think most people are traditional energy users, at least at this point, and I think most people don't want to see their power bills go up. So I think this might be an argument that you guys face going into this legislative session. Well, how do we make sure that we're not penalizing traditional energy users, by pushing this forward, right?
So yeah, so when you look at legislation, you want to be able to you have to make a decision. Are we going to make an investment? Because initially it might be more expensive to do some things, but in the long run, how is that going to play out? And whether it's the safety issues or the cost issues, but most people want to have inexpensive energy if they can get that, but at the same time they want to, if they can have it clean, they want to have that. So as legislators, we're going to have to look to see, can we do this in a way that won't impact, especially, that customer on the lower end that can't afford, an extra $10 a month or $30 a month. So we got to make sure that that's going to pencil out and work in the long run.
Is that going to involve extra funding from the state budget, you think?
Who knows? I mean, we have to really look at that to see how that's going to work, because generally that's been self-funded in especially when it comes to utilities, that they kind of help each other, right? So you have the big users that kind of help everybody else, and there's some of those other issues that are going to be discussed during the session too. Is how do we mitigate that? So that everybody can take advantage of it.
And I think that's really a key point that Senator Dennis is making, that particularly with community solar, you can pair a city with a residential consumer, with a business that leases their facility and can't put solar on their roof. So when you pair that diverse number of rate classes, you can really have a much more vibrant project.
Okay, now you were on the governor's task force for energy that met several times in 2016. What's your sense for the governor's priorities, the task force's priorities, and then different legislators' priorities? Are they aligning, or are we going to have a lot of disparate opinions going into this?
I think that we're going into session in a really good place, in large part because of Governor Sandoval and his leadership and the Office of Energy convening the governor's new energy industry task force. And that gave us the opportunity to have conversations about all of these complex energy policy topics in advance. So we've already discussed this. We've already had the stakeholder groups. So we're going into session with a list of recommendations that already have the buy-in from the work group. So I think that that's putting us in a really good place to move policies forward this session.
Except the challenge is going to be that there's a lot of new legislators, and energy policy is not necessarily simple. But I think there's still that opportunity because of all these discussions that have gone on in the interim. There's enough, I think, folks out there that can help people to try to understand the energy policy.
Yeah, okay. So in the last session, obviously, education reforms and the funding of that was the big topic. Do you see energy being the topic for this legislative session, or do you think it's going to be something else?
Well, I think and I'm kind of conflicted there, right? Because I'm the chairman of the education committee. So there are going to be some important education issues that we need to continue to have those discussions. But I think energy definitely is going to be, if you're talking about the big issues, education, energy policy, property tax. I mean, some of those things are going to be at the top of the list of the kinds of things that we need to be discussing and trying to find solutions for.
And it's not just solar, there's also geothermal. So are there initiatives regarding geothermal that you guys are going to be pushing forward on?
Well, we're working closely with Senator Spearman, and we know that she has a geothermal bill, and she really likes that geothermal can be co-located with solar projects, so that's definitely something that we're discussing with her. And I believe there's a total of 21 BDRs relating to energy, so even if it's not the focus, it will definitely be a hot topic in this session.
Yeah, and there's going to be a actual special subcommittee that's being formed to actually deal with energy policy.
Wow, is that new? That's a new thing?
That's a new thing, because we tend to have major committees meet, but when there's a special topic like energy, in this case, they create these special subcommittees that can meet and have more in-depth discussion.
Okay, for people who are, kind of watching the legislature from afar, anything in particular that you think they should keep an eye out for this session when it comes to energy?
Well, keep out to see what hearings are going to be there, because we want to hear from folks, and they have the ability to come wherever they're at, to come in and testify on bills. And you could go to our website, the legislative website, which is leg.state.mv.us, right? And they have calendars there, and you can look to see what the agendas are and look up policy, specific things. So if those are coming up, they can come and testify. They can also email or call or visit with their legislator, let them know how they feel about energy.
Yeah, it's the great thing about this state. All of our representatives are pretty reachable. So it's easier to participate, I think, than people realize. Easier to have your voice heard. And certainly it's not heard if you don't try. So
Correct.
Good to remember. Okay, any final thoughts before we go to break?
I just want to point out that the Solar Foundation just came out with their annual jobs report, and nationally we saw double-digit growth in solar jobs. And Nevada was a leader. We were #1 in solar jobs per capita, but we actually lost jobs last year, and that's in part due to the PUCN decision. And so I think that this provides an opportunity to bring more renewable energy online, but also more jobs online, and to provide Nevadans more energy choices.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you both so much
Thank
for your
you
time.
so much.
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, coming up on Face the State, it's hard to ignore Tesla when it comes to Nevada's energy and economic future. But are consumers really interested in buying those electric cars? And what is standing in their way if not? I'll find out right after the break.